Hi, everybody. This is Kristine from Mom Vegan Love, and I'm so excited and honored to have Jamie Day here with us today. Welcome.
Thank you, Christine. I'm excited too and honored.
Aw. Can you tell us all a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. My background is I was a professional actor working in musical theater for many years. And then I came to South Florida, where we both live, and really loved it here and wanted to find a way to sort of re-authenticate myself. So I went on a spiritual pilgrimage to Egypt in 2006. And I was meditating at the Temple of Isis on the Isle of Philae, and I had this beautiful message come through to me, just letting me know that I wasn't going to be working as a professional actor anymore, that I was going to completely shift gears and become of service. And I didn't really know what that meant at that time, but I started working, creating drama therapy programs for kiddos. And that led me to getting both of my master's degrees, one in psychotherapy and one in drama therapy. And so I'm a registered drama therapist, and I worked towards getting my licensure as a psychotherapist. And I got that in 2014, and then voluntarily relinquished my license last year just so that I could really know that I was in personal, professional, and spiritual integrity with the work that I was doing, which I can talk more about that later. But as a psychotherapist and as a drama therapist, I've worked with large groups, small groups, individuals in an agency, in a private practice. And my specialty is trauma informed care when it comes to that psychotherapeutic foundation. And that's really understanding how the trauma of what we experience really affects our neurobiology, thus affecting how we relate to and regard everything that we come into contact with, especially the relationship we have to ourselves. So I've worked with a lot of very high risk populations, worked with people in active recovery, lots of different women, moms specializing in parenting, education, and infant mental health as well. So that's my background.
Mic drop. That's awesome. You're awesome. Well, it
Thanks,
seems,
honey. It takes one to know one.
oh, well, it seems like you would be the perfect person to talk about addiction then. Let me see. I have some questions.
Okay.
What do you think are some of the main reasons for addiction? Like, do you think there's always a root cause? And if so, why?
Well, my psychotherapy training tells me that there's never an always. There's never an always or a never. How ironic and oxymoronic is that? To reduce human behavior down to, yes, there's always a root cause, might be a little bit um, reductive. But from my experience working in the fields of recovery and addiction and healing, really healing and transformation, there's always a root cause when it comes to why we seek the behaviors that we seek to help us feel safe and secure. Now, that looks and feels different for everyone. But if we had the most perfect, optimal way to sort of develop from the moment of conception onward, perhaps we wouldn't need or reach for these things to pacify us, to give us this sense of security, of sanctuary, of safety, connection. I don't know. I haven't met a person or a human being that's had that sort of optimal development from conception onward. So we seek, we quest, we find ways to fill places and spaces within our hearts, within our beings, within our psyches, to give us that sense of fulfillment, comfort, contentment. And some of us seek substances, some of us seek repetitive behaviors, some of us seek certain types of relationships, some of us seek out different thought patterns and belief systems, sometimes functional, sometimes not, I guess you could say, for all of those things. But we do it to help ourselves just feel safe, help ourselves feel loved, help ourselves feel secure. So to say there's a root cause why we, especially things that we become addicted to, everyone that I've come into contact with, yes. there is something that we're looking to satiate within us that we haven't had that need met yet.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. That's a great answer. And I also hear you about not having found one person who had like smooth sailing from birth until today, right? So yeah, that's why we don't all pick the same way to soothe. So it's just interesting. And I love your perspective of just being so gentle with ourselves and just coming from a place of understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the world at large and different, societal and cultural belief systems and paradigms, they've been wounding enough on top of already feeling pretty raw. And if we beat ourselves up for what we perceive as mistakes, if we beat ourselves up for what we perceive as things we should or shouldn't do, or maybe dysfunctional patterns of behaviors or thoughts or feelings, it might work a little bit. I mean, the no pain, no gain sort of thought process has been pretty popular for humanity for quite some time. But I just question the efficacy of how long that's going to last. And I mean, I'm all about creating joy and bliss and ecstasy and connection and love in my life. And I don't know that a byproduct of self-punishment and self-criticism when it comes to discovering why we soothe and offering ourselves an alternative course of action for soothing. I just don't know how effective that is going to be,
Right.
or how I would say successful that would be for creating a life post substance or behavior or whatever cycle of addiction we're using to soothe. I don't know how successful that sort of type of format would be for creating a life that's filled with bliss and joy and ecstasy and love and contentment and connection.
Yeah. So yeah, what I'm hearing too is that do you think it's pretty common to move from one addiction to the next if you don't really look at the root cause?
It can be. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, there are loads of wonderful testimonies out there of people who have quit a substance to find that they're addicted to something else, a different behavior, say working out, or, just unplug something and plug something else back in. However, when we can really find a way to access those deep parts of ourselves and understand why we do the things we do with compassion, with gentle witnessing of ourselves. I mean, we don't get taught this in school. It's not like, you go to undergrad and have a class on compassionately witnessing yourself with gentle acceptance. Please, I wish we had that. But when we can find a way to do that, whether it's through working with another person that we really feel safe with, and or in the context of our relationships and our groups, if we can find that safe space to really look deeply at ourselves, that's when I think the real awareness comes of, oh, I see that I just was choosing this to soothe, that I stopped that, and then look, I went ahead and just plugged that right in. So I hope that answers your question, that it is pretty, I would say, easy to go from one thing to the next if you're not really looking deeper at the why.
Right. And what I'm hearing too is that awareness is key because it can happen so seamlessly. Oh, I froze.
Yeah, like you froze a little bit, but I can hear you. Seamlessly is a great way to describe it. It can also happen like invisibly, silently, and so much of our self-soothing behavior that becomes dysfunctional once we get into our, young adult and adult years, it's happening on an unconscious level. So, to become that aware, that self-aware of why we're doing what we're doing, um it it takes a certain level of just, I would say, dedication to
Yeah.
really look at ourselves like that.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because also a lot of our behaviors, like in my case, I call myself an unconventional addict, right? I would look around and my behavior wasn't any different than the people around me. So it just didn't seem like, but even though I knew, but comparing and looking around, I'm like, I guess maybe I don't have a problem because everybody else is acting this way. So that kind of brings me to my next question. Do you feel like in order to be made aware of an addiction or a struggle that we kind of have to hit some sort of rock bottom, or that there has to be some sort of event, or because there are whispers, before that can be easily kind of brushed away. What are your thoughts around that?
It's interesting that sort of, you got to hit rock bottom and have nowhere else to go but up. That's I would say that's a pretty reinforced narrative in our addiction communities. However, do I believe that has to happen? No. I mean, we're such dynamic beings, we humans. And we have so many opportunities that we create for ourselves, that are created for us by others, to have this level of awareness. So I understand why having a rock bottom moment can be so transformational, and inspirational, to get us to really choose something different, or to get us to open our eyes that we don't want to live like this anymore. But I don't think it has to be there to make lasting change. Just like you said, you hear the whispers. You're going to hear the whispers to go to a yoga class. You're going to hear the whispers to take a walk on the beach. You're going to hear the whispers to sit down and cuddle with your dog, or hug your child. Any of those moments like that we have, that we gift ourselves just the quiet solitude of our own company, or just a chance to be in the present moment. I think those whispers add up, and they can be enough. They really can be enough. It doesn't mean they always will be, but for some of us, they really can be enough. For others, we're all so, like I said before, dynamic. We're also different and unique and individual. And what might be the sort of rock bottom for one person might be just an aha moment for another.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what I'm trying to get people to see too, that with this book, is that everybody's journey is so different, and just that we can kind of catch ourselves anywhere on this, way down to whatever that rock bottom is. Because if we can find other people that haven't traditionally hit rock bottom and still decided to pause, maybe that can inspire others too. Like there's just not one fits all, kind of.
Absolutely. I think we hurt ourselves when we try to, um, push ourselves into sort of an equation of what something is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, love that. Oh, a little shift here. I would like to talk about codependency. How would you describe codependency?
Well, funny you mentioned that. I knew we were going to talk about this from the conversation we had, about a year ago.
Yeah.
And codependency is a relationship where a dependency has been created, either with another person or a behavior or a thing like a substance, to keep the status quo, whatever the status quo is. And for a lot of us, our status quo is we want to feel safe, we want to feel secure, we want to feel loved. And a lot of us have been taught that to feel those things, we have to be, quote unquote, in control, right? We have to be in control of this situation, of someone else, of ourselves. And a lot of times, as you and I have talked about at length, as trying to control someone or something else other than ourselves just isn't going to happen, right? But we can really institute an awareness around what we do and what we choose and how we react and how we behave. So when codependency comes in, I think we have to talk about just how dynamic codependency can be. Like we've already said, it can look and feel different for everybody. We can have codependent relationships where one person enables the dysfunctional behavior of another to keep status quo. We can have a codependent relationship where we sacrifice our own needs for the perceived needs of someone else. And a lot of times that can happen with caregiving, with parenting. A lot of times codependency can look like not having really clear boundaries about what is okay or what isn't okay with us. It's almost like we feel like we aren't allowed to have any boundaries, and we're just going to follow along with what somebody else tells us is okay for us. So I guess down at the root, codependency is sort of a giving away of our own sovereignty, our own power, and deference of thinking, because it's not real, it's the illusion, and deference of thinking that we're going to get that from somebody or something else, when in reality we just don't. There's always a deficit there.
One word that really stuck out there was the perceived need.
Right. I mean, and that's something that I had to learn with my leadership journey. And I learned this working with a teacher for about a year through a certification program. And she talked at length about interdependent leadership versus codependent leadership. And for me, I realized I was exhausted in my leadership journey because I was leading from a place of codependency. I wanted everyone to be happy. I wanted everyone to like what I was doing and to like me. And so I was sacrificing my needs for the perceived needs of the group when nobody had said that stuff to me. I just perceived it, you know? And whereas interdependent leadership is not that. You lead from a place of empowerment. You lead from a place where your cup is full. You lead from a place of knowing that everybody's needs are valuable and equal, especially our own.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different sort of way. And you can look at your relationships like that too. Are they codependent? Are they interdependent? And first, let me backtrack and say, really, every relationship is codependent in a little bit of a way. We all are. It's not like anybody misses the codependency train when you decide to become human. We learn through this, right? And it's just a way to learn to really get to know ourselves. Codependency, our awareness around our codependency and relationships gives us that level of meta awareness so that we're aware of what we're aware of. We're aware of if we're engaging in things that are not great for us or optimal for our well-being. And we step into more of an interdependent way of relating to ourselves and our world.
I love that. And what I'm hearing too is intradependent, is that what you call it?
Yes, interdependent. Yeah.
Yeah, starting to assume that the people around us are adults that are capable of taking care of themselves, and that we can come from a place of inspiring instead of taking care of.
Yeah, or fixing.
Fixing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I also what I'm hearing is the perceived need, I feel for me came from growing up feeling like I was in charge of everybody's feelings, and developed a strong sense of empathy, like almost like reading the room, feeling energy before somebody would even say something. I would perceive how they were feeling, so I could then make sure that if the feeling was negative, I could shift that. So you became kind of highly sensitive in a way. So
Absolutely. I mean, and there's so much great work out there talking about how, you know, we as highly sensitive, highly empathic beings, we can be more vulnerable to codependency. Those of us that are healers, I mean, Kristine, you're a healer. I'm a healer. So many of the beautiful women in our tribe are healers. And one of the things that you get gifted when you are a healer is that level of heightened sensitivity. So I think for us, we've consistently got to just be so conscious of where we are where our boundary ends and where the other boundary begins, and really staying in a place of, like you said, inspiring, way showing, leading by example, and trusting that the other person is just as capable as we are of doing everything that they need to do to meet their own needs.
Yeah, love it. But also my next question here is like, how can codependency affect addiction?
Well, I mean, when you think about it, we're looking to have a need met that hasn't been met. Okay, go back to like infant mental health and secure attachment, right? When we are securely attached, we can trust that this world is a good place and I'm safe in this world. And we can even take it a step further to say, I'm safe to rest in this world and know that I'm protected. That's not something that a lot of us can identify with. We identify with the opposite side of that. So what do? We look to find ways to meet those needs in ourselves. You've said the word soothe. It's a perfect word for this. We're looking to self-soothe. When we self-soothe with something that's not an optimal behavior for our, well-being, for our functionality and our relationships and our personal and professional endeavors, that's when the codependency and the addiction become really, I would say, symbiotic partners, because we consistently want to feel better, right? And we get positively reinforced. We take that drink, we hit, buy now. We put a coin in the slot machine. I realize I'm dating myself. They don't even use coins anymore. But, we do that and we get that positive reinforcement hit of a chemical being released in our body, whatever that is, to help us feel connected, to help us feel energized, to help us feel courageous and brave, to help us feel protected. And it starts a cycle. And the cycle becomes repetitive, and the repetition becomes addictive. And before we know it, just like we were talking about before, those unconscious sort of ways of being and relating to ourselves and each other are running the show, and we're not really consciously aware of what's going on or how vulnerable we are to finding a way to functionally meet our needs. And let's also talk about that. I mean, Kristine, what can we identify in our world today as functional ways to meet our needs? It's not the stuff that you see in television shows or movies or in magazines.
Yeah.
It's us coming together, to support each other. It's finding sanctuary where we can really be honest and authentic with who we are and how we're feeling and what we think and what we want, what we desire. It's our women's groups that we do. It's those beautiful moments that we still have to look for. And they're there. They're definitely there. But they're just not the common sort of construct. Not yet, anyway, as to what we do to come together and feel that connection, to feel that oxytocin-rich environment, so we feel safe enough to bond and we feel safe enough to play.
Yes. And what I'm hearing too with the codependency and addiction, and that's something that we've studied together with the Sophia Code, just being addicted to suffering. But and I love hearing too the reminder that this is all like subconscious, that we're not even aware of it, that it can be like seeking the same type of relationship over and over again, just following these patterns, right?
Absolutely. You said, with the Sophia Code and doing that circle, oh boy, the addiction to suffering, if we want to sort of expand our consciousness and talk about energy when it comes to the collective energy, there is still a big collective thread in humanity where we truly believe we must suffer. We must suffer to live. We must suffer to grow. We must suffer to die. And that is reinforced through many different threads and ways of being that are culturally and societally supported all the time through the different organizations that we're part of. You can throw a stone and kind of find that. To step out of that, though, is to step out of that codependency, knowing that I can meet my own needs, that I do deserve happiness. We can step out of these addictive cycles of suffering and know that there's another way. I don't have to apologize for being here. I don't have to apologize for being myself and consistently choose to suffer through codependency or through addiction. I can choose to walk a path of alignment. I can choose to walk a path of contentment, of joy. And that's something too. I mean, I wish we taught that in school. And we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, I love that. That is a choice. And also love how you described the Karpman drama triangle and how you can shift being the rescuer to persecutor to the victim, and you have been taught a different way of viewing that, right? That is more empowering.
Well, I think it just goes back to the awareness piece, like what we're talking about. To say things like rescuer, victim, persecutor, I mean, for a lot of us, we're like, oh, I don't resonate with any of those. And then you get down to, but wait a second, do step in and rescue? And when you step in and rescue and you feel like, you can't fix somebody or control the situation, what happens, right? Do you go into persecutor and get angry and rageful and say, well, then I told you once, or, forget it if you're not going to take my help? Or do we go to victim of, oh, I can't help anybody. Nobody loves me. Nobody listens to me. And you start to think, oh my gosh, those are cycles that I do recognize in myself. And then you can think, oh, I recognize that in the way that I was brought up by the people who taught me how to be human. I recognize that in the stories I've been told about my ancestors. These are not things to beat ourselves up over. These are not things to point the finger and say, you're bad because you do this. And so, but somebody was so messed up. No, this is how we've learned to survive. It's how we've learned to survive. Yet we can become addicted and codependent to each of those roles: rescuer, persecutor, and victim. But how do you transition yourself out of that? It's all this level of awareness that you and I are talking about, taking a step back and saying, wait a second, I am compromising myself for the perceived needs of what I think this person or this situation needs to be fixed or to become right. When we can let go of that sort of hubris, that sense of like prideful knowing, and step into our higher self and think, I really trust in this situation. I trust in my own inner knowing. I trust in their inner knowing. And I'm going to compassionately witness this happening. And I'm going to be in alignment with my highest self. That's all I can do. Keep my side of the street clean. Then those roles begin to shift. We don't want to be the victim anymore, because being the victim doesn't get us anywhere. We don't want to be the persecutor, because being a persecutor just makes us feel bad. We're not being nice. We're not being kind. We don't want to be the rescuer, because we realize that's not even a realistic role. We can't rescue anybody. As much as we'd love to or think we can, we just can't. The only person that we can really be accountable for is this person.
Yeah. I love that. So we've mentioned this a little bit, like what kind of help, support that we feel is most beneficial for people going through addiction. What's coming up for you?
Well, I'd say just how blessed we are that there are so many resources. We have beautiful groups that meet, some that follow the 12 steps, some that follow other recovery philosophies. We've got some wonderful people that are social media influencers who are being very transparent with their recovery journey. And that offers, I think, a lot of solace and just sense of being in a kindred sort of community, knowing you're not alone. So those resources are wonderful. I am a huge supporter of find a therapist, find a healer, find someone that you really feel a connection with, that you really feel safe with, and don't give up if the first one or two or three don't feel like a fit. It's like dating. You're going to find people that you resonate with more than others. But find someone that is capable of really supporting you on your transformational journey. And this is going to be someone who is in alignment with their personal and professional integrity. And I would add spiritual integrity. So definitely seeking support and knowing, I mean, this is an infant mental health foundation that as human beings, we seek relationships like we seek oxygen. So we wouldn't be born the way that we're born, needing 100% caregiving if we weren't meant to grow up that way too. And I'm not saying codependent caregiving, I'm saying interdependent connection. We live in a world of tribal crisis, and I can't claim credit for that. A friend of Pearl's, that her mom said it, but it resonated with me. We're going to shift into tribal consciousness, tribal connection, tribal community. So find that community, find the group that meets, go play volleyball, with some other people, go to the YMCA and be consistent, go into the same workout class if you like it. You will create your community. You will birth forth your tribe, and just having that beautiful connection with others that really are going to see you and going to miss you when you're not there, and are going to want to hear what you think and feel. That's a great way to start your journey of support and your journey of just releasing these dysfunctional patterns that keep you mired in places that don't feel in alignment with your highest self.
So I hear all that. And what my question too is that somebody's listening to this and they realize like all their friends are drinking. Do you feel like you need to change like your surroundings completely if you've come to the understanding that you're addicted to, say, alcohol? Do you need to like go out and make brand new friends? Or what do you do?
Well, I mean, I'd say the short answer to that is you will make brand new friends regardless. Right. I mean, you bring up a great point, right? Because so much of our addictive behaviors are socially supported. Do I think that you've got to end all relationships and find all new ones when you realize that, say, you're addicted to alcohol and all of your social relationships are based in imbibing with alcohol? Is that an always or a never? No. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do, but I would suggest you sit quietly with yourself and really ask and really listen to your heart. What do I need right now? And if your journey culminates in sobriety, in setting those substances down to choose a new life for yourself, a new way of being, my guess is that your heart is going to answer, we need to change our environment a little bit to support ourselves so that this can happen, so that this can be a reality and not something that we just keep talking about. Right. Chances are, I always say this, and this is kind of where science and spirituality come together. As a psychotherapist, that is what's called a systems approach, meaning we typically work with families and couples, and that's because all of the relationships are considered the client versus just more an older way of approaching mental health, which would be the person sitting in front of you as the quote unquote identified patient. So what that means is if you have one person from a family of 4 or one person out of a couple dyad sitting in front of you, you can trust that family therapy or couples therapy is happening because the one person is going to shift and the other person or people in relationship with the person that came to therapy with you are going to have to shift too. That's a systems perspective, that we're kind of all cogs in a machine. And when one shifts, everybody's got to shift to keep the machine going.
Mm.
So that's kind of a way to say, and I was going to say energetically, we know that when we heal energetically, when we shift our vibration, when we, I would say, raise our frequency, the people that we're in relationship with kind of have to do that too, so that we can all be vibing in the same place. We've all had that happen where we realize, oh, I've been on this evolution journey or this ascension journey, and somehow I feel like I don't have anything in common with my friends anymore.
Mm.
Right? It doesn't mean you're better than them, doesn't mean anything like that. It just means that you're different and you're vibrating at a different frequency.
Mm.
So that's kind of where the spirituality follows the science. But that's just a way to say that when you choose these new choices, these new ways of being for yourself, and those choices are in alignment with not imbibing with alcohol, chances are you're not going to be as drawn to hanging out with that group of crowd or that group of people, that crowd, when that's what they want to do is imbibe in alcohol. It's just not going to be a fit anymore. So there'll be a natural sort of release around those relationships, the ones that are meant to sort of fall away. You've learned what you needed to learn from them, and your heart and your space is going to grow to have new relationships come into your life.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear all that, and I do feel like the universe or higher power is going to guide you as well, and that there's going to be a little hints, like I write about that in the book, and how your flyer just kept popping. Even I put it in a drawer, somehow it ended up popping up until I ended up going to one of your beautiful circles. But it took a lot of courage and a lot of little whispers because it was so outside of my comfort zone. So yeah.
Well, I think you bring up a great point, Kristine. Our comfort zone, I mean, look around. Where is your comfort zone landing you right now? And are you okay with that?
Yeah.
And if you're not okay with that, then your comfort zone needs to change.
Mm.
It's got to expand. It's got to grow with you. And sometimes that's really hard because we're soothing with these behaviors because we don't feel safe. Right? So we've got to find a way to step out and to, courageously go into a space that may not feel comfortable. But the beauty is that it's exactly what you've been looking for. So you find comfort in the discomfort.
Yeah, and what you realize too is that everybody's just as uncomfortable as you are, so you can you can do it together.
Yeah. I mean, no matter what, we're never alone.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe we can fully recover from addiction?
Absolutely. I believe in the power of the human being. 100%. We are so capable. We are so miraculous. We are so able. I mean, we are so wise. My goodness, yes, absolutely. We can do absolutely anything we can put our mind to, and more things we haven't even thought about yet.
Yeah, and this is a little controversial, and I know that it works for a lot of people, but in the my understanding is that in the AA community, you use an I am statement, like I am.
Mm-hmm.
Hey everybody, my name is Kristine, and I am an addict.
Mm-hmm.
And also to my understanding is that is something it's a disease, like alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
It's a disease that you will have for the rest of your life. My belief is that just saying an I am statement is very powerful, and we can shift that into whatever we want to. So I personally would rather say I am sober, because that's empowering me. So what are your thoughts around that? Do you kind of see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. We talked about this back when I was in graduate school. in the early 2000s, or like more like 2008, mid 2000. Uh, it's just this sense that to to sort of accept a label, to accept a construct of powerlessness, to accept the limitations of a disease as a chronic state of being, it can keep us in a one down position where we consistently feel like we're always striving to become. We haven't ever arrived. And for some people, Kristine, we got to say it works. Obviously, it works. It's a fit. And for those people, that's wonderful. And if it has been a fit for you, but it doesn't feel like a fit anymore, that's wonderful too. My goodness, we're so blessed to live in a world where there are so many different ways to approach releasing ourselves from addictive cycles. So we don't have to accept one as gospel per se. We can try a bunch of different ones and see what fits the best, and know that when it doesn't fit anymore, there's another option out there for us.
I love that. Yeah, we get to try on all kinds of different suits and colors and shapes, and yeah, to see what fits. And I love what you're saying about therapists too, that it's like dating. That's really funny and true.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, and to not stop if you feel like the first person is not a good fit. Like, no, you didn't. Try again.
There are so many wonderful healers out there as well that aren't following a traditional mental health route. You're gonna find your pocket, and you're setting your intentions to start to meet your own needs. Trust that the universe is going to listen and help you do that.
And also what I'm hearing in my experience, getting kind of learning about my codependency and my no and my boundaries, and that what I want matters. I feel like it's a practice in that it's actually a choice, that I get to go look at all these different options for my healing, and then not being like a people pleaser. And like I have now signed up with this person, so I had to keep going, but it doesn't feel right here, but this is just what I do because I don't matter. So then getting to practice being like, actually this is not a fit for me. It's not personal, but I think I need to look elsewhere. And so that is just like a little, I feel like the universe kind of gives us little lessons like that too, so we just get to practice life.
Absolutely. And I think allowing ourselves to practice life with a spectrum of colors and not feeling like things have to fall into any certain lane, like I'm only going to see a therapist.
Yeah.
Right. So much of what has limited us and wounded us as human beings is being constrained like that and restrained like that. So if we're going to do that over and over to ourselves on our healing journey, we're going to consistently get more of what we've been getting. However, if we can start to really just soften into the possibility that I will receive what I'm meant to receive, and we don't have to have it, written out, or get it as permission from some outside source. If we can really just trust in ourselves. And that's a process. I'm not trying to insinuate that's like you push a button and you get it. But if you're on a journey toward recovery, if you're on a journey of evolution and growth and transformation, you're giving yourself permission. Just keep doing that. Keep staying aware of where you're limiting yourself, understanding why. How is that helping you feel safe? And then finding ways to consistently soften back in to receiving what you're meant to receive with trust. Because when we were little and we weren't securely attached and we couldn't believe that this world was a good enough place for us to rest and be protected, that was because we were little and because there were big people in our lives that had the job of protecting us that just couldn't for whatever reason. Now we're those big people. Now we get to protect ourselves. Now we get to securely attach to ourselves, and we get to trust that. We get to trust in the goodness of our hearts. We get to trust in the wisdom that we possess. We really can recalibrate our connection to ourselves in that way, no matter what journey we're on.
Mm. Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, my next question is, do you feel the universe or a higher power guides and supports us on our life journey? And if yes, how so?
Well, you know me well enough. How much time do we have? Absolutely, yes, 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 yes. And those are the realms that I work in so much of my healing practice now. Just helping us access that sense of source within us. And that can be whatever you want to call it: God, goddess, the universe, galactic life force, whatever it is. But just trusting that that's in here and finding ways to consistently communicate with that side of ourselves, to consistently access it and to trust it and to strengthen it, and to sort of lubricate that line of communication so that it's there and it's effective and it's powerful and potent and easily accessible. I firmly believe in that. And I also believe that whatever mistakes we feel like we've made, they've been perfect in their imperfection, because they've made us us, and we're exactly who we're meant to be, and we're exactly where we are meant to be all the time. And that means everything down from the minutia of just a junky feeling to something else that feels like it's not figure outable. It always is. And to just keep recalibrating that connection to trusting the self, because we are source. We have that in us. And we can connect to our higher self and always bring that beautiful intuitive guidance in, and we can trust it. And like I've said already, we can trust in the goodness of our hearts. We are good people. We are good beings. And if we feel otherwise, find yourself a healer, find yourself a therapist, find somebody to help you believe in yourself again.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
So do you believe that we kind of have, and that's kind of what I'm hearing you say too, just like everything that has happened and what things that we have done has kind of brought us to who we are today. So if we assume that if you're addicted to something, that you have an addictive personality, this we can kind of shift that. And what I'm hearing you say too is nothing is good or bad or right or wrong. But if we have this really strong force in us, like how can we channel this force for good? That makes sense.
Well, I'm kind of thinking there's like two questions in there. It sounds like the first part is that it can be easy to fall into like a self-fulfilling prophecy that we are an addictive personality type person, so that we've constantly got to be on guard. We've got to be hyper vigilant with ourselves. And I think that in and of itself is a trauma response, right? It's another trauma response to try to keep ourselves safe, to try to keep ourselves in control, in line. However, if we can just be aware of our soft spots, if we can just be aware of our vulnerable places and spaces, and with love say, I sense it happening. Okay, I'm going to make a different choice. To me, that's just a softer way to sort of go about the understanding of I've got an addictive personality. Just knowing yourself, being gentle with yourself, loving yourself, mothering and fathering yourself in the way that maybe you didn't receive the first time around. With lots of guidance, and consistent, persistent attention. So there's that. What was the second part of the question too?
Well, it's kind of, I guess, it's kind of harnessing the power for good. So like the way that I can the way I would drink, for example, I would never drink one. I would drink 10. Or I would smoke. I would smoke one. I would smoke 20. If I work on, I can also now channel this energy that I have, this just like really power, all or nothing mentality, into creating a whole website in a night, or like write like 3 chapters, just sit down and just like I can kind of do things very powerfully, and it doesn't necessarily have to be to attack myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. You bring up a great point that like there is such momentum behind addictive cycles. We know the power of them, right? You can feel the power of them. You can sense the power of them in others. So if we can harness that, like you said, to use that word harness, if we can harness that for something functional to be of service, right? To ourselves and to others. Wow, my gosh, how many gas tanks could we fill? Like you said, you can sit down and you can, that energy that previously you would channel, not smoking one cigarette, but smoking the whole pack, using that energy to sit down and create your website, using that energy to sit down and write this book, write 3 chapters of this book that your sole purpose is to offer support and healing to others. And so many of the women in the Soul-To-Sisterhood book that talk about their journey of addiction and recovery, they have completely transformed it into a way to help others by authentically testifying, telling their story, stepping in and saying, hey, you're not alone. Let's work through this together, sponsoring others through their recovery journey. The sort of power and energy that goes into maintaining an addiction, right? That is huge. I said fuel a bunch of gas tanks. Yeah, forget gas tanks, rocket ships. However, when you become aware of what you're aware of, right? And you're gentle with yourself and you're loving to yourself, you can say, "Whoa, I got all this energy. How am I going to use it for good?" Right? Because I am that worthy. I am that worthy. I'm going to use this for good. And I trust in myself. I trust in my pure heart.
Yeah, I love that. And what I'm hearing too is just when we shift the perspective outside too, just that being of service, just really helping others, and that is so powerful there. I feel like then we're talking about, I feel like, yes, putting ourselves first, putting our own oxygen mask on first, to be able to do that, to be able to help others, right?
Right. Now, see, this is where we've got to be so aware of our soft spots, because we can step very quickly into that wounded healer paradigm, which is a codependency paradigm, meaning I'm going to heal everybody else to the deficit of my own well-being.
Right.
So this is where we've got to be really so sensitive to ourselves, right? I'm telling you, Kristine, we are that worth it. We are that important. We do deserve that much time and attention and love, to be that hypersensitive, not policing ourselves, not punishing ourselves with criticism and force, loving ourselves, accepting ourselves, understanding ourselves with this really beautiful level of awareness, so that we can find that sweet spot of balance of, I've got all this momentum and energy that I'm going to channel into being of service, while also staying really astute in my awareness when my cup is empty, or when my cup is getting half full, that I go and fill this one back up so that I can continue to be of service.
Right. Yeah.
Because what happens when our cup gets empty? We get into the Cartman drama triangle: victim, rescuer, persecutor.
Yeah.
So that's not an act of service for anybody.
Right. And also what I'm hearing too is that we're a collective. So we can both, like, everybody's helping. So it's not just, because in my mind, I've sometimes felt like it's on my shoulders to, save the world. And it's a really heavy backpack to carry. So it's, in my mind, it helps thinking too, that maybe when I need to put my backpack down for a little bit, fill up my cup. I know that there's lots of other sisters and brothers out there spreading the message of love and hope and compassion. And, in my case, veganism and sobriety, and that we're part of a community, and we're doing it together.
Absolutely. And community is like the word of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Addiction and addictive cycles and behaviors are really, there's a lot of solitude. There's a lot of loneliness there. There's a lot of hiding. There's a lot of shame, humiliation. And when we can step out of that and into the vibration of community, right, where we can be authentic, where we can truly share who we are, where we can know that I've got your back because you've got mine, not I've got your back, I've got your back, I've got your back, I've got your back, and then the only person that has my back is me.
Yeah.
That doesn't work, but stepping into community helps us, I think, step out of these addictive cycles of isolation.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. And just taking away the shame, because shame is like a wall in front of community. Like,
yeah.
It's also coming back to the word perceived. Like in my mind, I didn't feel like I could share my addiction or my the way I was using alcohol, because there was so much shame around it,
Mm-hmm.
So how can we even, if we can't talk about it, how can we get past it, So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. So we're almost, this is lots of questions here. Almost at the end. So what are 3 of your favorite recommendations for self-care? What can we do to fill our cup?
Well, for me, self-care is not massages and manicures. Self-care is being really aware of why I'm doing what I'm doing all the time. And understanding with compassion and gentle grace that if what I'm doing doesn't feel in alignment with my core sense of who I am and that core sense of joy, that I can find a way back to the path. So how did I get to that point? A lot of self-study for me, a lot of seeking, a lot of questing, a lot of, I would say, just trusting that there is so much within me that I can access and use as a resource. So for someone that maybe they think, oh, well, that's fine, Jamie, you've been doing this for however many years, and here I am starting my journey. Well, I would say to them, we are one. I have days of day one, just like anybody else does. However, we can find community. We can get outside. We can take a walk. We can get our feet on the earth. We can drink a glass of water. We can make ourselves nourishing food. We can give ourselves a hug. We can take 5 minutes and read an uplifting book. We can take 5 minutes and listen to a song. We can gift ourselves this love and attention and trust that we can really rewrite the sails of our ship, no matter how off course we may think or perceive that we are. So that's what I would start with. Start simple. Reacquaint yourself to the present moment. Play, I know this much is true. Say 5 things you see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can taste, 1 thing you can feel. Play, find ways to connect to yourself with playful energy. Find ways that you can connect to others with playful energy. And just trust, just really trust in your own heart.
Oh, that is beautiful. How can people find you and find out more about you if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, please. I love working with people individually. We can work together, in a lot of different ways, in person if you're in Southwest Florida, or virtually if you're not. You can find me on my website, divine-mommy.com. You can access all of the individual work that I do. And then I will have more groups starting up online next year in the fall of 2023. But right now, if you are local to where we both live, I do in-person groups as well. And you can find those on the website. And you can buy a copy of the Soul-To-Sisterhood book, which you can find on the website as well. And that's a really fun, interactive place to start as well. There are 180 sacred place suggestions in that book for you to fall deeper in love with yourself. So start right there.
Yes, yes, start right there. That book is amazing.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much, so much, so much for everything and for being here today.
You're welcome, honey. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you do and for your dedication and harnessing that momentum into creating your beautiful project and body of work.
Oh, but thank you.
You're welcome, honey.